Good evening, everyone. I'm Kellic, the Earl Marshal of the Middle Kingdom. With me is Master Gwynneth. She is going to give us a class on how to keep combatants safe on the field, recognizing signs that somebody might be in distress. She went through this class with me. I thought there was a lot of really good information here, and I thought it'd be good for marshals as well as unit commanders to have this information. So we're going to, if you're watching this, you're probably on the YouTube live stream or the YouTube stream. So welcome. If you have any questions, reach out to me or her. With that said, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to her.
It's Kellic. Hi, everybody. As he said, I'm Master Gwen. I am going to see, I cannot share my screen yet. Kellic, if you could give me the ability to do so, because I have a handy dandy PowerPoint, because some people prefer to see as opposed to listen. While he's doing that, I'll kind of give you my mundane credentials. In my mundane life, I am a licensed clinical professional counselor, meaning I'm a licensed and master's level therapist. So this is just kind of my jam, talking about mental health things. And that's how I came to this, trying to bring my mental health knowledge into the SCA, help combatants, non-combatants, really just everybody in the society as much as I can. It's like I can share my screen. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that. So as Kellic said, we're looking at how to keep combatants safe. For those who are present, if you have any questions, please feel free just to jump in. You don't need to wait until the end unless you want to. So first off, thought I'd say very briefly, okay, I'm here. Why am I listening to this? So Duchess Runa became aware of some field-related challenges at our last Pendic that were negatively affecting both combatants and others' mental health and safety. I'm not going to go into the whole story. If you really want to hear it, you're going to have to ask Runa if she's willing to tell you. Suffice to say, we learned that there were some improvements we could make. So the objective here is to empower everybody, but little particularly marshals, to know what they are seeing on and around the field so that they can better support the combatants. If some sort of mental health related issue happens to arise, in order to keep everybody safe. And now I know somebody's going to say, but Gwen, I'm not a mental health professional. I am not getting on that ride. I'm not getting involved. It's okay. There is no training required. This is an info session. I'm not going to sign off and say, here, you're certified to do something. You're also not going to be expected to make any sort of diagnostic or treatment type position or decisions. In a way, you can almost think of this as kind of like a mental health first aid. Everybody knows your basic first aid. Wash out the cut, put some kind of sterile bandage on it, get them on their way. So what kind of things are we looking out for when we talk about a potential mental health related issue on the field, and why? Things we might be looking for are anxiety and panic attacks. These are actually quite common. Anxiety and depression are the two most common mental health challenges in our country. They are the two most common things that are diagnosed, most common thing treated, most common thing people, present with. It's very, very common. Now, does this mean that like everybody's going to need immediate support and assistance? No, but everybody has a bad day once in a while. Dissociation. We'll go a little more into that. Dissociation is basically a state where you don't kind of have both feet in the here and now. There is both adaptive and I'll say maladaptive dissociation. When people talk about being in the zone or being dialed in, that's a type of dissociation. That's an adaptive dissociation. The maladaptive is if you're not able to kind of come back to your here and now. If somebody goes, Hey, Gwen. Oh, what? And I can come back. That's adaptive. That's a positive. A maladaptive or negative is when maybe they can't snap back. If you're thinking maybe this kind of sounds similar to maybe like a flashback is a type of dissociation. Don't equate all dissociations with flashbacks. It's just a type. You may be looking for what we call shutting down. That may be if somebody is maybe maybe their shoulders are collapsed, they're very drawn in and they just don't seem to be responding. It's all, you almost feel like the lights are on, but is anybody home? And yes, I say that lightly, but if you haven't seen this, that may be what it looks like. You're like, I'm not getting anything from them. That may be an indication that they have shut down. You may see things we're all familiar with. Frustration. We all get frustrated. We all have our bad days. You may see anger. Again, we get frustrated. Something happens and it just ticks us off. Maybe we are hot and tired, and so we are just not at our emotional best. It happens to all of us, happens to the best of us. You might see erratic behavior. That can be a little hard to define. Some of that relies on how well you know the person, but also you've been around the list long enough, you get used to seeing how people tend to act. You tend to get familiar with what exhausted fighters kind of look like. If you see something out of the norm and you're kind of going, okay, I'm not used to that, that doesn't seem right, that may be what you're looking for. So any of these can create a potential unsafe situation wherein a combatant is not fully aware of themselves and where they are. Does not mean anybody is looking to mess somebody up. It doesn't mean they're looking to cause trouble. It just means an issue has arisen and they just may need a little bit of support, a little bit of help at hand, just to keep everybody safe and get everybody kind of realigned. An important note is that any combatant, any person can do everything right and still have what I'm putting in quotes as an episode. I hate to say that, it sounds so demeaning, but I couldn't come up with a better term. That could include having a panic attack, dissociating, having PTSD triggers like a flashback. Any of these can come on suddenly, and it could be in response to a situation that previously didn't cause any problems. Maybe the loud banging of a sword on a shield. Maybe they've been doing this for years and it never bothered them. But today, for whatever reason, it sends them into a panic. It would take me way too long to discuss the neurology of that, but it can happen. And people can go like, I've been around this for years. Why today? Why now? That is beyond our scope. Our scope is, okay, well, it did happen today. Let's deal with it. So then what do these things look like? There's going to be a lot of overlap with signs of physical issues like exhaustion, heat issues that we're all already pretty familiar with just by stint of being out there on our weekends in the hot weather. So if you ask me, well, how do I know? How do I know if it's heat or mental health? You might not, but for our purposes, what you do, the answer is going to be pretty similar. So you may see somebody who seems kind of dazed, a little spaced out. Maybe they need to go get a drink. Maybe they need to rest. They may seem a little sluggish to respond to commands like swords up, put your mask down, combatants come gather over here. They may be a little slow to respond in conversation like, hey, how are your fights going? Oh, they're good. They may just be a little sluggish, or maybe they're grasping for words a little bit, things like that. If you are getting no response to conversation or commands, You want to maybe, I don't want to say escalate, but you may want to be, that much extra attentive. Because in a normal setting, it's not common for somebody to just not talk, just not respond to you or give a nod or anything. That may mean they are very exhausted. Maybe they are experiencing heat stroke. Maybe they're having a panic attack or they've shut down. Any one of these, we don't want somebody on the list or on the field who can't respond to us. Look for body language. We all know what a tired fighter looks like. Anybody who's been around a list knows what a tired fighter looks like. I'm on the rapier field mostly, but I totally know, I'm sure there's a term and I've forgotten for it, what it is. When you have two heavies and they're sitting on the ground and they're up back to back and they're both just kind of like this. They are tired and conserving energy. We all know what that looks like. Here we go, slumped. Or maybe is their body language getting aggressive and agitated, or they may be really irritated? Why don't you sit a moment and get some water? The answer to any of these, your first answer can be, why don't you go get some water and take a moment? Or when was the last time you hydrated? Whether it is because they are hot, they are tired, or they are having a panic attack, go sit and get some water is a good answer to any of them. So you don't have to worry as much about which one is it, and more so what can I do to support them. Go sit down and get some water is generally a good start. You can also look for, how do they react after the fight? Do they seem particularly frustrated, angry, irritated? We don't want that on the list either. Maybe the person they were fighting, didn't call a shot, or the melee pass was a mess and they're annoyed. We all have those days, but we don't want somebody who's hot and agitated out there either, because then they could potentially swing too hard or hit too hard, whatever. We want them to go take a moment and kind of cool their head as well. If they are totally nonverbal, like we were talking about, there is just no response to commands or conversation whatsoever, please help them get off the field because something's not right. We'll talk a little more about ways you can help somebody get them off the field and figure out what kind of not right is this. Is this a take a breath? Is this get some water? Is this call an EMT? So this doesn't seem right. Something just seems off. My marshal spidey sense is tingling. Now what? We just said direct or guide them off the field. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can guide them by putting an open hand on the outside of their elbow. We're not looking to grasp. We're just looking to kind of gently cup and steer. This is if you're comfortable with that contact. The outside of the elbow or an open palm on the back of the shoulder are low elevation contact. Especially if you don't know if somebody, has perhaps been in the military or has had, has seen active duty, and their lizard brain is trained to respond when somebody is touching them in any way that feels grabbing or constrictive. We don't want that. And if you're not comfortable making physical contact with somebody, you don't have to. Just say, let's go off the field. Come on, let's go. If you see somebody who happens to know them, who is a friend, you can have them maybe help you. Let's all go sit. Delegate the issue to the right person. I just said if you see one of their friends. This could also be a spouse, a campmate, a member of their house. The reason I say delegate this to the right person is that these are the people who are usually familiar with what that person needs and how they best respond. They probably have information on this, whatever this issue may be, that you don't. You also have a job to do. You're also supposed to be out there marshaling or commanding or whatever. We want to keep every combatant safe, but if you can pass their care off to somebody who knows them better, please go right ahead. If there's somebody that you can't find anybody that seems to know them, you can pass it up. Pass it up to your local commander, to the marshal in charge. Any one of those people are also good people to go to when you're like, I don't know what to do. I got them off the list. Now what? Pass to somebody in that chain of command. And if you can't find any of these people, if you can, sit with the combatant. If you are not pressingly needed somewhere else, just sit with them for a little bit. You can say things like, how can I support you? What can I get for you? I'm with you. I don't know about y'all, but a lot of the combatants I've met are a little bit stubborn. And I'll say something like, do you need water? And they'll go, no. And then I go, I'm going to get you water. And I'll bring them water, then they chug it. And I'm like, don't tell me you don't need water. You just chugged that. You clearly need water. Or I don't know, get a damp towel, put that on their head. So you can also go with your basic level instincts. Do you need, if they say they don't want water, get them water. If they really don't want it, they're not going to drink it. And even if they're not able to talk to you in that moment, just sitting with them and just being a quiet presence can help a lot. I know it feels really awkward to sit in silence with somebody. Therapists, we are specifically trained on how to sit in silence because our culture doesn't like silence. And we sit there and we panic and we think, what do I say? What do I do? I have to say or do something? Not necessarily. If you're like, I don't know what else to do but sit here in silence, just sit in silence. Your presence will still mean something and it will still help. Worst case scenario, and I said 1 in 1,000, I probably should have put like 1 in 10,000 because I have never seen this happen in my almost 20 years in the SCA. I have never seen this happen. But worst case scenario, find a SCA therapist or some other medical professional. You all know me now. If I'm there, you can come get me, or just call EMS. If it's worst case scenario, like this isn't right. Something's bad. I do not know what to do. Everybody is looking at each other going, what? Just call EMS. Just call the professionals. It's what we have them there for. So then what if their behavior is erratic or seems to be dangerous? Maybe somebody is actively throwing their weapons at somebody, or they've taken their mask or their helmet off in the middle of a melee. I don't know. Get them off the field. We have a dangerous situation has arisen. We want them off the field for everybody's safety, including theirs. Now, how do we do this if somebody is behaving erratically or dangerously? I call it using calm parent voice, wherein you're being authoritative but not combative. You think if you've ever worked with kids, your own, somebody else's, whatever, there's that tone of voice that we all take where we are calm, but we're not arguing. This is the voice we want to use. We want to use calm parent voice, not angry parent voice, because that's just going to cause more agitation. You can also do what we call ally with the individual. You are on their side. Hey man, come on, let's get off the list. Hey, come on, let's go off, let's go talk. Come on, you and me. We don't want to hold up the battle, or we're just gonna tick off the other marshals. You and me, let's go. Ally with them. It's you and me. A lot of, like, we call it we statements. Questions. It's pretty brief, didn't take long. Questions, comments, concerns, anybody in my current audience?
Nobody commented in the chat, so there's no
Okay.
questions there. I see nobody, I saw one person shaking their head.
So I was either wonderfully informative or terribly boring.
I think probably wonderfully informative.
I hope the former. So,
If there are no questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
sure.